Hello all, this is Skinny. This is part 2 of my Star Wars series of Skinny's thoughts. If it gets a good response, then I'll probably keep doing it just to fill in time and talk about other things. But this will be mostly about the movies. Part 1 will be probably in the description, just so you guys can watch it first up. I want to talk about the original trilogy, the way that the plot is actually probably revolutionary for the time, considering it was in the late 70s. The original trilogy is very similar to a superhero movie or even an anime movie, or even an old martial arts film where the good guy gets his butt kicked at the start of the movie. Actually, you could even watch something like Karate Kid. Karate Kid's probably a better example. Cobra Kai's doing alright, but Karate Kid, LaRusso gets his butt kicked at the start of the movie, picks up karate, beats the dude at the end of the movie. It's similar to Star Wars in a lot of ways, especially that original trilogy. Usually they only have one movie to settle it. But Star Wars did long-form storytelling by using 3 movies to tell a good guy's story. First movie's A New Hope, and it kind of sets up the plot twist for the second movie, where it turns out Luke is really the New Hope, being an 18, 19-year-old kid called on by a pretty woman, a princess. I say pretty woman, but yeah, a princess from another world. A call to adventure, picking up a couple droids, and off we go. Losing a mentor, but Empire Strikes Back is probably considered one of the best sequels of all time. Along with movies like Aliens, Terminator 2, Bad Boys 2. It'd be Bad Boys 3, I reckon. Mad Max, if you're an Australian. Mad Max 2. And Thunderdome's pretty good. And I think Mad Max is one of those movies that just keeps getting better. Maybe Finding Nemo. Gotta have some good films. The original trilogy is very much like a classic superhero movie. It is very well put together. Like you'd say, it's not very full of depth or bloody too much in it. There isn't. It's pretty good. It's one of those where it's a product of the times, but it's aged really well, and people still are fans of it 40 years later. It's insane. I'd like to also talk about current movies as well. Like I say, the prequels. I'll move on to the prequels. I'll talk about how the original trilogy's villains. We got Vader, and you got Sidious / Palpatine / the Emperor, where Vader is predominantly the villain of the series until a redemption at the last five or so minutes at the end of the film. But the prequels set up Vader very well. I know the prequels did receive quite a bit of hate when they came out. So things like Jar Jar Binks, I assume the Metachlorian thing. There's probably a few other things, probably more just the dialogue that's been memed, like Anakin's complaint of sand, and probably Hayden Christensen's. I'm not gonna say bad acting. There's worse acting in those films, but I'd say for him it was just a bit of dryness. Like he was just dry. But I don't know if that was direction or anything like that. I don't know what goes into the Star Wars movies, like the prequel movies. But the choreography, mispronounced that way, choreography, for the Duel of Fates, the Revenge of the Sith, even Attack of the Clones, the fight choreography with the lightsabers, bloody brilliant. Nothing has beaten the prequels at lightsaber combat, except for probably the games, especially those old Jedi Academy games. Those things brilliant for lightsaber combat. Graphics, they should remaster that one. Okay, I'll stay on the movies. I'd like to talk about the thing that's recently gotten tickled the taint for a lot of Star Wars fans. Actually, is probably the first couple seasons of The Mandalorian. Like I say, the one thing that's made people's dick itch is probably the last few episodes of the Obi-Wan series. Because you've got Ewan McGregor returning, you've got Hayden Christensen returning, and my first thought would be for like an idea for that series would be a duology series with Anakin, with Vader and Obi-Wan, because it's hard to make Obi-Wan's time on Tatooine interesting without screwing up the plot for A New Hope. Because the dude was on Tatooine for, what, 20 years? He would have been bored. And he would have been going mental too, because you think about it, he got out of a war, like a galactic war, pretty much murdered his best mate, allegedly. A lot of people that he knew, nearly everyone that he knew, was killed. Some more brutal than others. So the one thing that would have been quite interesting is to explore concepts like post-traumatic stress and isolation, and how, like, I know one good thing they did in the Obi-Wan series was cut him off from the Force, Obi-Wan I mean, because it could have created more avenues for reconnection in a more spiritual way, and it probably explains why A New Hope, that lightsaber duel, wasn't particularly impressive, if that makes any sense. But it's a product of the times, it's fine, but it could explain a lot of things. Like there's explanations that Vader was hesitant because he still had that fear of his old master. Well, his master just didn't give two shits one way or another if he died or not. Another would be, the other side of that is just Vader. Because, I mean, the creation of Vader. Because he doesn't just become Vader. It's like dissociative identity disorder. It's a whole new identity that is manifested and created due to Anakin suffering physical and emotional trauma from losing everything that he loved and failed to keep what he loved safe. He viewed himself as weak, created a separate identity for Vader, as Vader, sorry, and Vader became this killing machine. And I think a lot of fans, like Vader to a degree, is always going to be that sort of cash cow. So it'd be brilliant if we got to see what Vader did during those years, for 20 years, whether it was hunting down Jedi, interrogation, how the Empire actually operated in its most sadistic tendencies. Because they're like, I'm not saying it'll be an MA-15 plus bloody production because it's Star Wars, but make it enough where we actually get to witness why the Empire is so evil, why the rebels are a necessity, how Vader became such a monster in a lot of people's eyes. That would have been quite good. Duology series. And even if you need to spice up Obi-Wan's time on Tatooine, there's there's a comic that was put out. It had a character called Ashrad Het, who's the future Darth Krayt. Now he was a survivor of Order 66, Jedi, obviously, and he went back to Tatooine and returned to being a Tusken Raider, like his father and himself were, and have him encounter Obi-Wan. And it would just give the fans a bit of an Easter egg and go, oh, like, who's that going to be? Oh, well, I don't know. Well, maybe the hardcore Star Wars fan may know. Just a little bit of hint of something exciting, and make it, and just start including the non-legacy stuff. Non-legacy? No, it's the legacy stuff. The canonical stuff. Non-canon stuff with the canon stuff. I hate how they've given it separate names. Just start slowly incorporating bits and pieces until there's a nice flow. But no. Since I've talked about the prequels a little bit and touched on them, to talk You know, to say I enjoyed them. Like they're just one of those things that I never hated them. Movies are movies. You can critique them and crap on them, but no movie's perfect. You can pick apart any movie. There are issues, obviously, but after the sequel trilogy, yeah, people were appreciating the prequels, except for maybe Jar Jar Binks. Now, I'd say the sequel trilogy is the exact opposite of the original trilogy in one big way. The Last Jedi is considered one of the worst probably these, in my opinion, the worst Star Wars movie. And it's probably one of the worst sequels made. And I'm saying it from a perspective of not just like as a fan. Like you can like it if you like it. If you don't, you don't. It's fine. But how it ruined anything to look forward to for the next movie, because it was a trilogy. They set out to make a trilogy, not standalone films. So you got The Force Awakens. I found with The Force Awakens, it was one of those where they did it safe, because I believe they needed to know if there was still a hungry fan base. So they played The Force Awakens safe. They just wanted to know how much money we can make off this, or if there's still a market for people wanting to watch this. That's why The Force Awakens, I believe, was very much like A New Hope. It was like, hey, if there's any new fans, come and have a look. If you're an older fan, it's like, hey, you recognize this. You know, easy. The Last Jedi, everything that it built for The Force Awakens, it threw in the bin. You know, any mystery as well. Snoke, he was killed. Rey's parents were abandoned as something to look forward to. So all we had was, we had the death of Phasma, Commander Phasma, Captain Phasma, one of those. I'll move on to characters after, but now you got nothing to look forward to. Like any mystery that the first movie established. Luke Skywalker, the return of Luke Skywalker, something that was a cliffhanger at the end of the first movie, and what people were looking forward to for the second movie. Rey's training. What's Luke going to teach her? Why is he in exile? What happened to Ben? Ben Solo, obviously. What happened? You know, that whole mystery. Inconsistencies with his character were revealed, because this dude, like, he saw when nearly all hope was lost, this dude somehow saw Goodness Invader, who at that point was a ruthless killing machine. Yet his nephew has a wet dream one night, and he thinks about using his lightsaber to murder his own nephew, someone he had built a relationship with. Doesn't make sense, honestly. It's ridiculous. Doesn't make sense to me, personally, as a writer. The one thing that The Last Jedi proves is the sequel trilogy wasn't well planned out. They didn't plan a whole trilogy. They replaced Jar Jar Abrams with Rian Johnson, or Ruin Johnson, and then put JJ back in. And The Force Awakens suffered as a result of losing everything in The Last Jedi. Even Luke's death proved very lackluster and anticlimactic. There are other things, and to talk about the characters briefly, the characters like Rey, Finn, Poe, who else? Even Leia, even the legacy characters. I'll say legacy characters, which are the older characters, and then you got the newer characters. The first movie, The Force Awakens, when I watched that, I'm like, when I saw the trailers for it, I was excited for it, keen for it. Finn was the first trailer. In the first trailer, him in the desert and the white stormtrooper go up, and I thought, oh, stormtrooper in the middle of the desert. See a main character? Okay, they're doing something different. It is going to be different. It's a different. It's going to be a bit different. It's going to start differently. It's not like A New Hope. And to watch Force Awakens, it was like, oh, there's a lot like The New Hope, but nostalgia, I guess, as I made the case earlier for nostalgia. And then they do nothing with him for the rest of the trilogy apart from having him scream and carry on and fight Kylo Ren for a couple seconds. For a quick cup of coffee, as the expression goes. That's it. And it's like, I can see why the actor himself didn't want to be a part of any future projects, because they did nothing with him and added no nuance with him. It was, and people can turn around and say, oh, like, why'd you take the role? Why'd you take it? It's like, man, like, it is Star Wars. Anyone would want to be a part of a Star Wars film. Why wouldn't you? It's like a Marvel movie. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of that? It'd be mental. But with the main hero herself, I'm going to say, Rey, yeah. When you think back on her character, it's like, what is actually interesting about her character? Like, what changed about her character other than she learned to use the Force and is holding a lightsaber by the end of it? I can see the Skywalker thing where people say, oh, she's a Skywalker, whatever, and how she says she's a Skywalker because she hung out with 4 out of the 5 legacy characters. Han for 10 minutes, Luke for a couple of hours, and Leia for maybe 9 months or something. I don't know. I've not seen Rise of Skywalker. Not interested, because there was nothing to look forward to apart from fan outrage, which was amusing sometimes. But yeah, I'd say with the politics and stuff, like the gender politics and the diversity politics and all that, the biggest issue with it is already a divisive issue in the United States. And it's specifically on party lines and all that. But when you make a product that is made for international consumption, not every country in the world is going to give a rat's ass about your politics. They don't care about religion because it's a movie for entertainment. A movie is to entertain people for a couple hours and remind people, or you're willing to waste a few hours just to watch this movie, this plot, and it's interesting. Putting non-subtle politics, gender politics, as I stated before, politics into an international product when it's already domestically divisive, that's the problem. People aren't going to give a rat's ass. And when you center it around that, you've got no plot. You've got no plot, no character, no nothing. Now, to say with Star Wars itself, Star Wars is probably the most inclusive franchise without even trying. It's got aliens, it's got robots, it's got different cultures like Jedi, Sith, Mandalorian, Bounty Hunter, whatever. Even the priest stuff, even the legacy stuff. There is so many stories that are really interesting. And it can have gay characters, it can have straight characters, it can have non-binary, transgender, it can have any of those characters. Anything, And it's a very inclusive franchise, a very inclusive world. And it seems that Disney aren't employing people to write stories, with the exceptions of Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, who are fans of the franchise, it seems. It's like, why? Like, this is a writer's goldmine. Who wouldn't want to write a Star Wars story or fantasy? I mean, I started writing because I enjoyed Star Wars. So writing, my first, like, it's not really a fanfic, it was just practice. I wrote a story in the same universe, you know? And I enjoyed Star Wars. I love Star Wars. It's very inclusive and very open and very creative. You don't need to force politics into it. You don't need to. Just write a good story. That's all you need to do. But I think I've made my point. I don't want to crap on everything because it's not what I'm trying to do, because I'd rather offer constructive criticism and offer new ideas. Thank you for watching or listening. Like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions for any Star Wars books that you'd recommend, or even comics to read, leave them in the comments. And see you later.